Okay, so a cool review today of the RustFS. So RustFS is an S3 compatible blob storage, which basically, for me at least, replaces Minio. So I was using Minio to mock S3 for my local developments, and even my cloud development when I didn't want to set up S3. For production, still use S3. But the problem is Minio won't close source, which makes sense. We wish them the best. Now we have RustFS, which is a new kid in the block and is actually amazing. So it's as simple as using Minio. You have a Docker things over there and you can just use a Docker. So in my case, I don't need to compile it and everything because I just want to use it as a mock of S3. Because in fact, my architecture, when I do production SaaS application, is this kind of architecture, which is basically I have my cloud platform, my Kubernetes, and then I have all of my pods. I use Valky as a message queue. And then I have some management pods, like the database management pod and so on. And then the workers pods, and then the web services that have the JSON RPC or REST APIs. Now, when I am in a local development, I'm going to use a devdb, which is Postgres, in a pod. And when I'm doing my development as well, I like to have a dev S3, which runs in a pod. So that was Minio, and now it's RustFS, which is amazing. And then when I go to production from that, then this is where I use a prod, blob storage, and here I'm going to use S3, and then the prod DB that I'm going to use RDS. I could use RustFS perhaps in some cases, but I like to use first the S3, and then if I need more, I go more complex. But right now, the RustFS is amazing for that. And I'm going to show how it works. So if we go back over there, we could take this one here, that will work pretty well. But in fact, I have a little README. So I like to use Podman right now, and then I do a run, make sure I remove everything, and then I like to have it interactive, such as I put it as a terminal, and then when I stop it, everything ends. So now, if we go to my terminals, I'm using Alacrity. So this is actually Z, and that is Alacrity with Tmux. So I'm a big fan of that. I've done quite a bit of JC task on Z and so on, which is pretty cool. So I have a whole nice workflow. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that guy and then we're going to go here and we're going to run it. So that will pull everything, I already pull everything, and that will start our server successfully. So now that we had that, we could go here to this URL, and that will give us this web UI. So obviously the web UI is completely optional because everything runs on the server, but it gives us a web UI at 9001. And then the password is, user and password is this one. So now I'm going to do the login, and then there's a lot of very cool features. But in fact, the only thing that we're going to use, for example, is this one, where we're going to create, I think, a demo 01. I like to pad it like this, and then we're going to create it like that. So this way now we can do that, and we could upload files and stuff. So that is going to be our web UI. So now that we have that, we're going to go to the run XP AWS S3. I'm going to push it here and put the link below in the video. And then I like to have these two kind of things, and then later I might have two, but that is my practice. So I have the lib right now is empty. In the cargo, we're making sure that unsafe forbid. And then today I'm allowing myself at the beginning to use unused, and then I toggle on when like that. We're going to be async. We're going to use these two guys, and then the DRF more is part of my best practices. So now I always use that. Now we're probably not going to use that too much here, but then eventually we might. So now we can go back to my list over there. So the way that I like to start my examples is I like to use my boxed-in over there. I've done a video why I'm using that for development and test only, not for production code, obviously. And then I have my OK over there, and then do my print like this. This is a type that we're going to need. We're going to see that later. And now what I do is I go back there. So again, it's Alacrity with Tmux, and I'm going to do a CWE. So that is a little cargo watch. So I install cargo watch, and if I do a functions CWE, because it's been a long time I haven't shown that, you can see it there. That's my function. So now I can do a CWE C01 list. And so that should give me hello S3 experiment. So far so good. And so then after, what I do is I go back there, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up our credential. So that you can do a load from environment, something like that. The thing is, usually when I do production coding, the environment keys for my S3 or whatever I want, they are not the standard ones. And I don't want them to be the standard ones. I want them to be prefixed with my service underscore and the intent of the S3, because I might have different S3s. And so typically what I do is I always get that from the environment, and I have, layers to do that. And then I set the credential myself. I don't want the libs to be over smart over there. So that's why I've done this credential over there, and I was making sure that I was learning the way here that I can do my own loading of these values. That is one thing that I'm doing. I will use that in production anyway, except that it will be from environment, obviously. And then we are going to build our configuration. So that is the way you do it now with the AWS config, from a while now. And we're going to have our credential providers, which is this guy. We are going to have US East 1. So that is to respect the spec, I guess. If you don't give a region, even if region doesn't make sense here, it will fail. So you have to give one, it's fine. On this one, the endpoint, I've noticed that doing the 127.0.0.1 works better than localhost. So I will recommend to use that. And then obviously within the Kubernetes pod, you will give the host of the Kubernetes. That's the whole point, yeah? But that will come from your config map. Then we load, and then we await. So everything is async. So if we toggle the type here, we have that, credential and stuff, looking good. And then we create the client. So far, so good. So now I could press a save here, and that will run again. So we see that we didn't crash. So that's good. And then we are going to exec the list bucket. And so that is a way here with the client that we do that. We do a list bucket, we send it, and then we wait for the response, and we get the list bucket output. That is the API. And then we're going to count it, which is basically we're going to take all of the buckets, and then we're just going to have a count right now. And so because in our UI, we created one guy over there, so press save, go back to the terminal there, and then we should have one. So far, so good. So that is a way that I like to code here, because every time I press save, and usually my terminal is lower, so I see everything at once, but I can see my progress live. And then the next step here that we're going to do is for each buckets, we want to display the name. So far, so good. Press save, go back there, and then boom, we see it. That means that now we use the official AWS library, and it works like a charm. So that is great. So usually for my production development, when I recreate a database and I recreate my blob storage, I will actually create that dynamically in my code, such as I have a fresh environment every time I restart my development. So that is awesome. Now we're going to stop that, and we're going to run this guy here, which is going to see how we're going to create some document and upload it. So let's click on that. So now we have this, and so very similar over there, and we're going to actually go there and CWE C02 create. And by the way, after, I'm going to show you how I create those files. The reason why I'm not writing by hand is because now I'm working a little bit differently. So I'm showing the final code, and then we'll go how I'm learning new technologies these days. So we have this, and this is very good. Again, follow my best practices. And so now we're going to go back there. We are going to make our fixtures in a way. So that's not really a test, but we can do that. We have our bucket 01, we have our file 01, txt, and then hello 01, which will be the content. And then we're going to set up our client, similar to the other one. And here I put kind of a little note. If you do a local host, when we create files, it's kind of a little bit weirdo. I don't know really what the issue is, but the 127.0.1, it works very well. And then we're going to create our client, same thing as before. So this one is not new. So on this guy, we create the bucket if it not exists. So we're going to list the bucket. We try to find it. I will probably have some convenient APIs, obviously, for these kind of things, but that is the logic. And then we're going to say if the bucket doesn't exist, we're going to create the bucket, obviously, always with question mark over there. And this way we don't have the unwrap. So that is something that I've said for years, I think. Even when you do example code, do not put unwrap or expect, because if there's a copy paste and it goes the wrong place, it's kind of a nightmare. So the question mark is good, because if you copy paste into your production code, you will get a compile error. And so you will have to handle this one to make sure that you have the right from. If you put an unwrap, you don't have the compile error, and then good luck. So that's the reason why I'd always do that, and I don't use expect and I don't use unwrap. So then I do the print here just to say the thing, and then I'm going to create the file here. So here I'm saying creating the file, this guy. So actually I'm going to press save over there, and if I go there, we can see creating bucket. So we're creating the bucket 01 because we didn't have the bucket 01. I think the one that I had before was demo. Yeah. So if we go back there, it was a demo. It was not bucket 01. So if I reload here, I should have the 2 bucket, which is perfect. That works beautifully. And then we're going to create a client here. So we're creating the file. That is the way it works. We put the object, so that will return kind of an object type. I don't know if, yeah, cool. We put the object here, and then we have this builder business. We build, and then we send over there. That is the future, get the await, and we don't really care about the result at this point. And then we're going to say print successfully created, the file key, and the bucket name. Yeah, so we could have probably put something over there. We're going to see that later. We put save over there. We're going to remove that. And then we should have successfully created file 1. And then we go to the web UI, reload. I didn't need to reload, but file 01, click here, we get that, and we get a nice little preview over there. That's it. So that is pretty cool. In fact, one thing we can do is we can say, hey, what does this guy return? I like res sometime. And then I'm going to do, so I have a little snippet over there, 10x debug println. So you can find my snippets in my JCZ stuff. Unfortunately, the extension in Z doesn't support snippets yet. So hopefully it will come one day. But that's my Rust. I put that this way. I search for those guys and I delete them before my commit. And then if I go back there, we get the expression and all these kind of things, which kind of makes sense in a way. Okay, that is pretty cool. So RustFS is a gem for what I'm concerned. Big thanks to the team. It's awesome. I hope that their business is going to work very well. So now I want to show you how I'm learning these days. So first I'm going to do a git restore because I don't know what I've changed over there. So everything is good. And you will have this branch under main into the Rust AWS S3. Now let's clean this one. And now we're going to go to git s, which is switch main. So that will go back to main, which is basically back to 0. So I'm going to close all these files. So going back there, and here's where I work. So I developed a pretty cool tool, and you can do the same thing with Cloud Code or Cursor and everything. Feel free to add comment of how you work with Cloud Code and so on. But with AI Pack, it's a runtime. You can install it on Linux, Windows, and everything. And it's an agentic runtime where you can build your own pack. And on top of it, I have a pro coder. The difference a little bit of Procoder compared to Cloud Code and Cursor, and it's not better, I'm not pushing my tools, use the tool you want, it doesn't really matter. But the Procoder is kind of a file-based kind of things. It's kind of control first, magic second, rather than magic first, control last kind of things, okay? So you install these kind of things, it's just a command line, all done in Rust, obviously. And then once you have it, you can do your API check keys to make sure that you have the keys in the environment. Here, I don't have the keys in the environment. I have a little local script that takes it from the keychain. So I'm going to do that. And now if I do that again, all the keys are here. So it's just in the environment. I'm not displaying them, obviously. So now that we have that, you can do an AIP install pro add coder. So that is a Procoder AI pack. Once you have the Procoder AI pack, you can do AIP run pro add coder. So that will run the AI pack Procoder. And again, for me, and I understand people that work with Cloud Code and Cursor, it's awesome. I'm not pushing people to use my tool. I just did a tool because the way I work for me is I always work file-based. And so the trick here is I want everything to be kind of in a file and to have my own workflow the way I want. So here I can do RAF, I can do anything I want. So if I go to the coder prompt, so that is the terminal UI done in Rust and Ratatouille. Now I have these kind of things, and it's what I call a parametric prompt. So this is my prompt, this is my parameters, and then I'm going to put the prompt on top, and then below that is going to be the response of the AI. And the terminal UI will allow me to see all the runs, the cost, and everything. Believe me, it's not for vibe coder because you will give that vibe coder, he or she will have a heart attack. So the cool thing about this is you can install a pack or so, which is Pro Rust 10x. And that is basically all of my best practices are there now. And they are just markdown files. So you just put a glob like that, and then everything is good. That's the knowledge globs. Based here root, that is typically the way you want to go. And then the context here, that is where we're going to put the things. We're going to do a cargo, and we're going to give the readme, even if we don't have a readme for now. And that is the content of the files that I'm going to send to the AI. So again, with the AI pack and Procoder, you have the exact control of what you send. The AI can ask you more, but you have to copy paste back there. And that is what you are going to send to the AI, but just the file path. And that is very useful because it will give a good context of the AIs of what the files you have. So for example, here I could do actually a little something like it's YAML. So you have to put it like that, a star. Yeah, not to go down recursively, but to have all of the root files. Yeah, that doesn't hurt. And that is advanced stuff. We are going to do true on the write mode. This is a new new experimental things, it will become the default. And that is a Flash. So Flash 3, that is an alias for Flash 3, is amazing. Yeah, but you can use Opus for Opus 4.5 and so on. So now, what we're going to do, and that is the way I work now, because it's actually too powerful. So I have Flash, I know exactly what I'm going to send, and right now this is just .ai pack. If I go to the Git ignore, you will see that the .ai pack and the .ai pack, because I can pack my agent if I want, they are ignored from the Git by default. So once I'm here, I'm going to say, looking at the Rust 10x practices, create XP AWS S3 projects with a simple C01 list.rs that just say hello. And so now this is usually what I do. Even at the beginning, I don't ask it to do too much. And then I come here and I press R or I click here. Same thing. In fact, with my JC task, Z task, I can do a command R and that goes directly to the right tmux of the right alacrity and so on. So it's pretty cool. So boom. And now we're going to see here, it created all these files, but it created my way. This is my thing. And so because I put the best practices, and you can find them, they are on open source, on the packs, pro and so on, and so you can take the Rust 10x and make your own. But now it's coding my way. It does the derived form and exactly that. And my libs, and then I go back here, and then I have these things. So far, so good. And so now that I have that, I'm going to go back here to the terminal. And so there's different way of doing it. I have something like that on my tmux that split all of these kind of things. So this one was 1 cent, and then I can do here a cargo build. On this one, a cargo build is useful because AWS library is actually pretty big. So doing a cargo build at the beginning helps a lot. And then we're going to do our CWE. Okay, so that is good. And now we're going to do CWE C01 list, and we should see hello world. So obviously it didn't really create the same thing that we had before because now I'm doing another prompt, but that is actually exactly what I wanted. So usually what I'm going to do is actually the cool thing here, this is a little terminal that is just more kind of a status kind of things. Everything I see here is mostly in my coder prompt as well. Okay? So just that when I see that, I put it in the terminal such as I can click on it to copy it, and then I go back here, Command V, and boom. I have it. And now it's Git. The best practice here is every time you ask AI to do something, you start from a clean commit. Yeah, you don't want to rely on tools saying approve. We have Git for that. We don't need to reinvent. So we have these kind of things, which is great. And now I'm going to say on this guy, I'm going to go back up. That is where my prompt is. I'm going to say in the C01 list, add a way to list all of the buckets, names, and print names. Clean code and use the coded credential RustFS admin, I think, and the RustFS admin. That is the two guys. And now I do a command R because with my JC task and everything there, it goes and finds the right tmux and send the R. But you come here and you can press R. And that will go and will create the thing. So typically now what I do a lot is this kind of things. Now in the coder prompt here is actually pretty cool. I have some files. Everything is file-based. Yeah. So if you put that in your knowledge and everything, you can have a plan-based development. If you put your dev chat here inside your context, you can actually chat and the things will be added in the files. So again, everything is a file, not in a terminal kind of things or not in the chat somewhere. Everything is file-based, yeah, from the question to the response. So that is the way I like. But again, please add comment below. If people do better things with Cloud Code and Cursor, it's awesome. Use the tools that work well for you. So now it does this, and it created our list over there, and we're getting pretty close of what we had before. Now, the nice things about AI is because I'm going to, and actually I forgot about something here. It didn't see the folder, by the way, yeah? So, but it's fine, yes, because it didn't need to see it. Examples, and we're going to do something like that to make sure. And I like to have struct, so like this, the struct can see everything, and then it can tell me, hey, you are missing this file. So that is a nice, so that is with content, that is without content. Now that we have the things here, we can ask to fix it or whatever. Now I go to list. And so the goal here is not vibe coding. It's not to code blind. It's to learn better and faster. But the most important is to learn better. Yeah. So now we do that, and you will see that when I press save here, the AI doesn't know how to format yet. But now that it will have these files in the context, when it's going to create the second file, it's going to be much better. The formatting is going to be much closer. Again, AI has become amazing. Use it, but don't use it to be lazy. Use it to be better. So we have have the create here, which is what we do. We do the config. It's exactly what we had before, the region over there. It's a different a little bit code, but that's good. And then it does the stuff. It does the exec. So that kind of took my pattern from my test. I like this kind of thing. So it's a nice mix. And so again, this is a me thing. It's because I put Rust 10x in the context. And that I get the bucket. I get this found bucket, very similar to what we had before. And then we had these guys. They actually have the same guy. This is actually this is a new prompt here that I'm doing. It's not the same one. So now let's see if it works. So we're going to go back there and it's not working very well. So we're going to do a control space D. So that's my way to zoom here. I love Tmux now. And we're going to see that there's an invalid access key, but I actually think that is my mistakes on the prompt, which is basically I didn't say the endpoint. Yeah. So now I have two choices here because again, we're not vibe coding here. I could go back to the prompt and say, hey, can you change it? Or I can change it manually. So right now I will do something like this. I will say, hey, I forgot something. So do they have an easy endpoint URL? Okay, that's good. And then I'm going to do a HTTP and then I'm going to do 1027.01.01 and I think it's a 9000 the API. Press save and then go back and then boom, we have our stuff. So again here, that is not really vibe coding. Vibe coder will prompt to the end of the day. Yeah? Here we say, hey, this config is over there. I mean, I saw it before a little bit, but even there, I will test it and look at it, or I will prompt it and save it. The important thing is to make sure that you are committing before you do any other prompt. We're going to zoom out and I'm going to click here and paste here. Boom, done. Well, actually, we're going to do the same example. We're going to go back here in our UI. We are going to delete that guy. I think it's okay. Now, then we're going to go to our browser here and we're going to delete that guy. You need to delete the contents. It's the same thing as S3. So we have everything. I reload to make sure I only have demo one. And then I'm going to say list of bucket. And now that we have this, and I make sure that I have everything committed here, which is the case. Now create now following the C01 list, create a new C02, create file.rs, which create bucket01 if not exist. And then create file01.txt with content01, regardless if it exists or not. I'm going to remove that and that's it. And then I'm going to do my command R, which again will send the R to this guy. You can go back to your terminal and do R. So you can, while it's running, you can navigate your things and you can see the overview, the task. You can have even multiple tasks. You see the prompt, the completion and stuff. And by the way, here, I don't want to be too philosophic here, but prompt and the completion and the reasoning is the eye of the AI. So once you get used to that, you understand how the AI, what is hard for it, what is not, and all these kind of things. This is actually very good numbers to have all the time, and you get this like spider sense over time. So we have this guy, which is good, and we're going to see that over there. It's kind of setup fixtures, really like this, which is fair enough. The credentials, the same thing. The client, that's good. The exec, this bucket and stuff, very similar to what we had before. That's perfect. Then it create uploading the files, that's good, and successfully. Oh, this one was the old one, so I'm going to here. And I'm going to do a CWE, C02, create file. Boom, it successfully created and everything. Everything looks pretty good. So I really love Tmux here because if I need to go there, I do like that. Otherwise, I zoom out. I mean, Tmux is very great and I can have different tabs over there. So now I'm actually extremely happy with that. So now we can check the UI. We're going to do a refresh. Boom, bucket one, go back there, this guy and that guy. That's pretty good. Now I go back here. I'm going to take this one. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to paste it here. Boom, we have this commit. And now, for example, I'm going to say, hey, perhaps, all of these kind of things here, all this create config and create and so on here, where it would be nice to be in lib. So again, if I were building the stuff, I don't have time, I would go away. But now we save so much time that as actually we can do that. So we're going to say now in the examples C0RS, let's consolidate the create client into the lib.rs so that all can be used code. So that press save and then command R. Again, you can come here and press R and then we're going to see how that is going to work out. Okay, so now it's done. And now we can go back here and it changed the stuff with client. That is exactly the way I wanted to do. New client, that's great. And then that's the error, which is my error pattern of Rust 10x. So it kind of follows the pattern again. And again, use your own pattern, yes? And then this is my lib. And this is my little Winnie things here. Sometimes you kind of get the stuff wrong. It's no big deal. And then that's it. This is beautiful. And then if I go back here and CWE, C01 list. Boom. That's it. And I will do that. And then I'm going to push that into the URL you see below. And until next one, happy coding.